Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. I am your host, Chris Tutela. Let's kick today's show off with some reviews on iTunes. Let's see as I pull this up here. And if you've left an iTunes review, I want to say thank you. And let's see. Look at this. Merciless Ming Chen with the review. My man Ming over here. Thank you so much, Ming, for leaving a review. Chris Tutela is a master trainer, teacher, and motivator, and now he is a master podcaster. If you are actively training or you need a little bit of motivation to train better and live better, Chris has got you every week via this podcast. Well, Ming, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. I got to get you a T-shirt now, and I don't even need your address. I can just bring it to the studio here. So thank you so much, man. Brian Keenan says, Chris is a wealth of information. His podcast reflects his passion. Do yourself a favor and listen weekly. What he says matters. Well, thank you, Brian. We got to get you over a T-shirt. Goncalves, with a 1 in the middle there, says, excellent advice, very positive, especially the part about toxic people in your life. Well, thank you so much. Reach out to info@tutelatraining.com and send Lauren over your T-shirt size, and we'll make sure to get you a T-shirt. So, Ming, we got you one next week, brother. Make sure we bring that in for you. So thank you so much. And if you guys haven't had a chance to leave a 5-star review yet, if you could take a quick second out of your busy day to do that, it would really mean the world to me. And if you have an extra second, if you want to leave a written review, that really helps us even more. It helps us grow the show, helps us reach more people, and change more lives. So thank you in advance if you have an extra second to do that. I appreciate and read every single one of them. And like I said, we will hit you with a T-shirt as a thank you for leaving your written review. And guys, as COVID numbers are spiking, we get a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of people worried about COVID and whatnot. And we're not going to get too much into all this craziness and what I think about COVID and is this a political thing or not, or what's going on here. Like, what I want to talk about today is, okay, let's just say you're concerned about the virus. What are some things that you can do to protect yourself, to protect your families, and become harder to kill? I think that's the name of this episode right here. We're going to become harder to kill. So this is the Hard to Kill episode. Let's go down your checklist of what you need to do to become harder to kill. Well, and we're talking about not just your immune system here, but we're also going to talk about your performance, your strength, being hard to kill, being resilient in life, being strong, not only your body, but your mind, your mindset, being strong, being resilient, and being unstoppable. That's what this is about, right? Progress, baby. So let's talk about the first thing that we always talk about. You've heard me say it 1,000 times, but you need to fucking sleep. We're not going to dive too deep into that today. Check out the book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Understand the benefits of sleep, quality sleep, deep sleep. Maybe grab yourself a Whoop strap to measure your sleep quality. See how well you're sleeping. See what your sleep cycle looks like. That's been great for me. It's been a game changer because now when I wake up, I can see what my sleep score is and see how hard I should go that day in my training. So check out a strap like that, and that could be really beneficial for you. Of course, you got to manage your stress better. You can't just be stressed out of your fucking mind all day, going crazy, ripping your hair out. You have to have a way to cope with stress, whether that be via meditation, journaling, spending time outside, whatever. You heard me talk about it 1,000 times. So let's talk about and finally here, but before I jump into the training stuff that I want to cover today, let's talk about your nutrition, because if your nutrition sucks, of course your immune system is going to be affected. Here's what I want you to understand, guys, that if you're eating a bunch of fast food, crap foods, if it's processed, refined bullshit, then you're going to be compromising your immune system, and partly because you're going to be in a chronic state of inflammation. So if you are dealing with inflammation chronically, that means that daily or chronically over a long period of time, your body is going to be trying to fight and reduce that inflammation. So since it's expending all of its resources trying to reduce and fight inflammation, and now doesn't have the resources to back up your immune system. So that's going to leave you with a compromised immune system, more susceptible to diseases and illnesses like the coronavirus, right? So you got to make sure that your nutrition is checked, single ingredient, whole foods. Focus on fruits, vegetables, lean sources of proteins, unprocessed carbohydrates, good sources of fat. Eat well. Make sure your fluid intake is up to par. Shoot for about half of your body weight in ounces of water per day at minimum, right? And we could work on building up to that or even going beyond that. But that should be the minimum. You want to make sure that you're hydrated. You want to make sure you're well rested. You're well fed. Even if your goal is fat loss, we've talked about this before, you shouldn't be starving yourself because that could actually compromise your immune system too. If you don't have enough of the right phytonutrients, micronutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, then your immune system is going to be compromised, right? So even if your goal right now is to lose fat, make sure you're eating enough food to support your health and your longevity and your wellness. You need nutrients. So don't just cut everything out, okay? Now, a big part of your immune system becoming harder to kill here as well, we got to make sure that you are protecting your digestive, or you are enhancing, I should say, your digestive health. All right, so a lot of people suffer from leaky gut where the barrier of the gut lining is compromised, and you actually get some things that are supposed to stay within the gut that seep out into the bloodstream, which causes a lot of other, it could be autoimmune issues or just health issues in general. So you have to be careful of that. And the first thing is, like I just talked about, minimizing the amount of processed refined foods that you're eating, focusing on single ingredient whole foods, but also either supplementing with a good probiotic or just working some more probiotics into your diet, whether that be through sauerkraut or kimchi or Greek yogurt or kombucha, stuff like that, making sure that you have that built into your diet so we are getting your daily dose of probiotics, right? The good bacteria that make up your gut. Now, in addition to that, those are living organisms, right? So we need to make sure that they are getting what they need in order to survive and thrive and grow their colonies. I guess we could call them colonies within the gut, right? So what do we need to do? We need to make sure that you are taking in enough prebiotic fiber. So prebiotic fiber is going to be found in certain fruits and vegetables and things like that. So bananas are a very simple one. You know, that's one of my go-tos for my post-workout meals in my shake. So working in stuff like bananas could help enhance your prebiotic fiber intake, and that could help you grow the good bacteria in your gut, and you're going to strengthen your gut health. And remember, your immune system starts in the gut. Okay, so if your immune system starts in the gut, think about it. Everything that you ingest, everything that you take in daily is going to either compromise or strengthen, but in some way it's going to impact your immune system. So if you're concerned about coronavirus, right? If you're one of those people that are really concerned and you're scared and you're overwhelmed because you see these numbers spiking in cases, then hell, I see a lot of those same people that are gaining 15, 20 pounds of body fat during the lockdown the first time. You got to get your shit together and make sure that your actions are aligned with the outcome. Okay, so if you want to stay healthy, if you want to stay strong, don't be one of those people that are just sitting home and eating ice cream and sitting on the couch all day. No, you got to stay fit. You got to stay strong. You got to stay lean if you want to keep your immune system strong. All right? So that's what I want you to start to look at and remember, okay, it's not just about locking myself in my house. It's about staying active. It's about eating well and keeping that immune system strong and firing on all cylinders here. Okay, now let's shift gears and let's talk training for a second. If we want to become harder to kill, first off, like I was just saying, you have to make sure that you are physically fit and physically active. Otherwise, your immune system will be compromised. Okay, You should not overtrain because that will compromise your immune system too. There's definitely people that do that. Okay, that's the other side of the spectrum. But if you do nothing at all, your immune system will be compromised. You will start getting overweight. And then now let's talk about the mental health aspect as well. If you are locked in a house or your apartment, wherever, let's just say they shut us down over here again in New Jersey. Now, if you are locked down and you're not doing anything, then we know that there is a direct correlation with being physically active and mental health, right? So people who are less physically fit, less physically active, are more susceptible to depression and other mental health issues, right? So that's a big component here that a lot of people aren't talking about, that you're not going to hear any fucking governor talking about that, right? And so when they close down gyms, it's like, okay, well, what about mental health? What about the abuse numbers that are going up? What about all the domestic violence? All these things that are on the rise because people are cooped up in their houses. Now, that's a whole nother topic here, but I think it's important to understand how being physically fit is going to affect that. So if you want to keep your head strong, if you want to stay in the game, then you got to be physically active. Okay, so whatever that looks like to you. If they close your gym down, you better find a way to do some body weight training, get some sprinting in, get some jumping rope in, get some yoga in, get something done, okay? Now, that should go without saying, but in case it doesn't, I want to make that loud and clear. Make sure you're doing something. You got to keep your fucking self strong and resilient if they shut you down again. And I know how frustrating it could be, but at this point, we got to start to rebel. We got to start to rise up and make sure that we get our point across that we have to be strong, we have to be resilient, and we have to do what it takes in order to accomplish that goal, whether that be on your own, in your gym, in your backyard, sprinting at a track, whatever the hell it is, okay? Now, speaking of, this is about performance this episode, becoming harder to kill. Your training should help lead you to not only a better body, but better performance, right? You don't want to be that meathead who's just, 300 pounds and jacked but can't move, unless that's your goal and you're a bodybuilder, and then more power to you. But for most of us listening, we want to be able to move pain-free. We want to be able to perform, play some pickup sports with our friends, all that good stuff, play with our kids. So let's go through a checklist here of some things that you should be doing. So first off, we want to make sure that you're addressing your soft tissue and your flexibility. So kick off your training with maybe 5 minutes of soft tissue work, foam rolling, using a lacrosse ball, going through some static stretching with some problematic areas. Most guys have tight internally rotated shoulders, tight pecs, tight quads, tight glutes, tight hip flexors. These are things that we really need to address. And if you spend a few minutes a day and even 5 minutes prior to your training session on just working on these problematic areas, just fucking 5 minutes, that's going to help you reduce pain for the long haul and allow you to get into better positions during your actual training session. Now, after we spend a few minutes on soft tissue work and some flexibility stuff, some static stretching, those types of drills, now we could get into more of the dynamic stuff. So for dynamic warm-ups, that basically means, what are we trying to do? We're trying to increase our heart rate. We're trying to increase our core temperature. We're trying to secrete more synovial fluid in the joints, which is like a joint lubricant. You could think of it as that, right? We want to mobilize the area. We want to break a little bit of a sweat. We want to activate our central nervous system to excite it, to put you into a more ready and safer state to train. So if you're doing an upper body day, then your dynamic warm-up should be a little bit more upper body focused. Lower body day, more lower body focused. Full body day, get some full body stuff. But I want you to mobilize the joints and just think of starting from head to toe, right? So if you're doing upper body, maybe you start with some yes, no's for the neck, right? Mobilize the traps a little bit, right? Get the scapula moving. Maybe you do some band pull aparts. Maybe do some face pulls. Maybe do some scap push-ups, move into full push-ups, maybe incline push-ups, right? I like to get a lot of blood drawn into the upper back. So if you have a band, you kind of attach it to a rack, Again, you could do face pulls, band pull aparts. You could do just rows with a band, but draw some blood into the area. Definitely push-ups after I do my scap push-ups. That's always a must for me. I like to do some tricep extensions, some elbow flexions, so some type of maybe banded curl or something like that, just to get the elbows firing. I will stretch my forearms on a bench. Maybe just get some articulations going of the joints, of the wrist, of the elbows. Get that stuff moving around. Maybe some YWTIs for the upper back, right? But you want to start bringing blood into the area. And then when I finish the dynamic warm-up, this is what I want you to do, because remember, if you're going to be hard to kill, you better be fucking explosive. You better be able to move quickly, explosively, and powerfully. So I like to end my warm-up with either a jump, a throw, a med ball throw, or some type of a sprint variation. So if it's upper body, I like to do some type of med ball throw, whether that be a med ball chest pass to a partner, to the wall, or even if I'm hinged over, med ball chest pass to the ground, maybe a med ball slam, maybe a lateral med ball slam. There's so many different variations that you can do. It could even be like a plyo push-up. There's definitely a lot of things that you can do, so we won't go into every one of them. But that's usually the types of throws for the upper body that I like to do. Or you could do one of those if you're lying on the floor, you have a partner kind of drop the ball, you catch it, you press it up as hard as you can, your partner catches it, he drops it back to your chest. Kind of repeat that action. But that's what we're going to do, those throws for maybe 3 to 5 or 6 or maybe 8 at the most. And then the same thing, if we do jumps, it could be a box jump, it could be a broad jump, it could be a vertical jump, right? There's a ton of different jump variations that you could work into your program for the lower body to be more explosive. Sprint work you could do on either upper, lower, or full body stuff. Full body days, I mean. So that could be a band-resisted sprint if you have a partner. It could be a quick 10-yard sprint. It could be a shuttle run. It could be however you want to do it. But that's how you complete the warm-up. So now you're focusing on that anaerobic, alactic energy system. We are exciting the nervous system. We are training for power. We're getting you in that more ready and safer state to train in, right? We've addressed the soft tissue. We've mobilized those areas. And now we've excited the nervous system. Heart rates increase, core temperatures elevated, you broke a sweat, boom, you're ready to go. Now, what I like to do is after my warm-up, I will get into, I used to do for years, I would do my main lift of the day first. So if I was benching, it was right after my warm-up. If I was squatting, it was right after my warm-up. Deadlifting, right after my warm-up, right? Now, I'd like to program those main lifts later in the workout, maybe second, maybe even third or later in the workout. And for my clients, it's the same thing. If we get some guys that are older and more beat up, sometimes I like to program that big lift third or fourth. But typically, for the most part, generally speaking, I like to program it second in the workout. So the first lift of the day will be just based off of, it will be based on activation. And think of it as like an extended warm-up, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be challenging, right? So, for instance, maybe if you're going to squat, let's just say your safety bar squat is going to be your big lift of the day. Maybe that first exercise is a dumbbell split squat. And maybe we do sets of 10 or sets of 12 to get started. Okay, so you might do a set of 12 with 50-pound dumbbells for your first set. And then the second set, maybe we up it to 60 or 65. That's where we get our real challenging set. Maybe you do the third set, but at least 2, I would say 2 to 4 sets to get started before you move on to that big lift. Now, we've secreted more synovial fluid. We've activated those tissues. We've activated the musculature that's going to be trained. So now you're more warmed up. Now, the argument here is that, okay, now you're going to be a little bit compromised. It might be a little bit weaker for your big lift. Maybe. But I think what I found is that you do adapt, and your percentage of strength that you do lose in the beginning, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10%. But hey, unless you're a competitive power lifter, it's all relative. And I'd rather you stay safe and stay strong for the long term, right, and focus more on longevity than just the 5 or 10% of the load that's going to be lessened because you got more of a warm-up, right? So you got to think big picture. It's not going to affect you so much in the long run, right? But you get that those activation sets. You make your big lift now safer, and you stay stronger. You stay in the game. And a lot of times, guys, you're going to feel better when you get to that big lift, even though you have more of a pump in the area. But you're going to be now a little bit more mobile. You're going to feel a little bit better getting into that big lift of the day. So try that. But so then you get to your big lift, right? Sometimes I will pair my big lift with a filler exercise, so it gives me a little bit of active rest. So if I do, let's just say I'm working up to a 5-rep max for my main lift on that safety bar squat, and let's just say it takes me 5 sets to do it, right? 5 sets to truly hit a 5-rep max. After my first set, my first build-up or ramp-up set, maybe I'll go and I'll hit whatever feels tight or feels restricted or whatever my problematic area is. So let's just say for me, it's my hip flexors. So now I'll just do a basic hip flexor stretch on the floor for maybe 15 seconds each side in between my sets instead of just doing nothing. So what I would encourage you to do is figure out what your problematic area is and address that. And I like to pair it with, like for instance, if I'm doing a squat pattern for my main lift, I want to hit my hip flexors or something lower body with the squat. If I'm doing something upper body, let's just say my main lift is a barbell floor press. I might do something for my pecs or for my triceps as a filler, or even just for my upper back. Maybe I'll just to make the exercise safer, maybe I'll do some band pull aparts in between my sets for my main lift of the day, right? Again, we want to think longevity. We want to think making the lift safer, right? So, hey, if I could do sets of 10 to 20 of band pull aparts in between my sets of barbell floor presses, then yeah, my shoulders are going to be in a little bit of a safer position for that main lift as the weight gets heavier, right? So I definitely like to use fillers. So just keep that in mind. So we hit our primer movement after our warm up, then we get to our main lift of the day. Then we get, and we partner that up with some fillers, and then we could get into some hypertrophy stuff, some accessory stuff. So we could jump into more unilateral stuff. So again, using that same lower body day, maybe now I go into, I would like usually, so here's the thing, let me take a step back. Depending on the goal, but let's just talk generally here. After we hit our strength set, now when I get into the accessory work, I like to set it up as having a tri-sets, or maybe just a super set, or maybe a giant set. So there's 2, 3, or 4 exercises paired back to back to back. Now, I don't do those, and I don't encourage you to do those sets with 0 rest, because then it just becomes all conditioning, and there's a chance that your technique just gets completely compromised and thrown out the window. So when you do those sets, I want you to think of it as like, okay, the idea is still to get stronger, but your heart rate will be increased a bit more, right? So we will be addressing conditioning a little bit more, but I don't want you to do it like CrossFit style where you're just moving and you're just trying to do it for time, because then your technique gets thrown out the window, form breaks down, and you're setting yourself up for more injury. But if we don't do stuff like this, then we're not addressing our any conditioning within our strength training. So again, the goal in your strength training is to get bigger and stronger, period. But if we could get some sets where we're elevating our heart rate our heart rate up a bit, these are the sets to do it. So this is where I like to work in, whether it be isolation stuff, because everybody talked about for years how bad machines were for you and all that stuff. I think that's complete bullshit. I actually think that machines are actually a lot safer for a lot of people, but that's another topic for another day. But let's just say you pair up 3 exercises, right? Maybe you do a glute ham raise, maybe you do a leg extension, and maybe you do, I don't know, alternating reverse lunge or a step up or something like that, right? If we're talking lower body. So there's so many different ways that you can tie that together. I like to train my abs and my traps on lower body days, so you could work that into those assistance sets or circuits, or you could do that afterwards. Either way, that works just fine. But when the important point is that you are getting that assistance work in, and whether you want to do it with just pairing 2 exercises or 3 or 4, the important thing is that you're still progressively overloading, you're still focusing on technique, you're letting your heart rate come down a bit, so you're getting a little bit of recovery before you move on to the next exercise. You're not rushing these sets. You still want to focus on the integrity and the quality of the movement, so none of that changes, okay? But for these sets, for this type of stuff is where I like to hit more of hypertrophy rep ranges. So it could be sets of 8, it could be sets of 12, sets of 15, sets of 20, right? So work those in, and that's where you focus more on hypertrophy. Keep a training log, because just like your main lift, you want to record the weights that you use and the reps that you accomplish and the amount of sets that you do, because typically here I'll like to do anywhere between 2 and 4 sets, depending on the goal of the training phase and whatnot, but 2 to 4 sets for the accessory work of 8 to 12, or maybe even extended sets of 15, 20, 25, depending on the exercise and the goal. And this is where, too, hey, be creative. You want to work in 1 1/4 rep schemes. You want to work in isometrics. Anything like that could be tied into all of this stuff, really, that we're talking about. So just keep that in mind, too. And then, of course, like I said, if we're doing lower body, we could follow that up with some abs and some traps, or you could tie that right into that circuit that we just talked about itself. But then what I always like to do, if we go back a couple weeks ago, I told you about some of my favorite finishers that I like to do, but I always like to end my training sessions with some type of challenging finisher, because this is where, too, we could focus on conditioning, we could focus on mental fortitude, we could focus on pump work, right, and do like a really tough drop set, back off set, mechanical drop set, whatever. You could tie that stuff in. It always ends your training session on a good positive note, good vibe, good energy. So yeah, work in those finishers, whether it be upper or lower body. Now, as far as a training layout, like over the course of a week, I always feel my best these days with 3 training days per week. I did 4 for a long time, and then I just like to do too much other shit to do 4 hard training days per week. And then when I do upper, lower, and I set it up like that over the course of a week, that I'm always sore, kind of banged up. My joints get a little bit more beat up when I do 4 days a week. When I started doing martial arts a couple of years ago, I cut my training volume down to twice a week, and I despise full body days. If I'm just doing 2 full body days per week, I just get so bored. I get no pump, and I hate that with a passion. So 3 days per week, whether I'm doing martial arts or not, that seems to be my sweet spot. I think that's what most people enjoy. And I like to play around with different things for 3 training days per week. I like to do either lower, upper, full, or I could take a 4-day training split and I could break that up over a 3-day training week. So for instance, let's just say I take a 4-day split, and day 1 is lower body, day 2 is upper body, day 3 is, let's just say, full body with a lower body focus, and day 4 is full body with an upper body focus. Now I could carry over 1 day every week. So for instance, 1 week will be day 1, day 2, day 3. The following week will be day 4, then day 1, then day 2. Then the following week will be 3, 4, 1. That's what I would do a lot at TTS. It keeps things interesting. It keeps our members engaged. It gives us more variety over a 3-day training week. And it just makes things fun. We could have different finishers, different challenges. I would suggest to you to create some type of small challenge for yourself each month. So let me give you a very simple example. So we might do a 4-minute fighter sit-up challenge as our challenge of the month at TTS for our members, right? And their last week of their training program, we will hold the challenge at the end of the week, right? So that then they could compete, they could record their PRs, and really challenge themselves, right? So now that training routine, of course, we're going to have fighter sit-ups incorporated into the program. And it might be like 2 or 3 or 4 sets of as many reps as possible within 30 seconds, right? And we're building up to help them beat their personal best when they actually test themselves on that 4th week, right? But those little challenges will encourage you to work a little bit harder if you're somebody who trains on your own. It also keeps things fun. It keeps things engaged. It keeps things interesting. And it helps keep you training so you could become harder to kill. But remember, if you are just beating the piss out of yourself with a shit ton of volume and you're not deloading every once in a while, right? If you're not taking a week off every once in a while, you're going to be beat up. If you're doing a ton of volume, you're going to be sore all the time. You're going to feel like shit, and that's going to even compromise your immune system, and that's the exact opposite of what we want here, right? So we have to make sure that your training volume over the week is in the appropriate doses. But more important than the volume, guys, and I want to go over this again and again and again with you, if your technique sucks, then the reps, the sets, the volume, the intensity, none of that matters if your technique sucks. You have to really spend time dialing in on learning the best technique and constantly improving that and progressively overloading the exercise only if the form and the technique is dialed in and really drilled into your mind on how to do it properly and how to execute exercises properly, because without that, you're going to compromise your joints and you're not going to really make progress. So if you want to check out one of my recent articles for arm training on Elite FTS, it's one of the latest ones that I posted, but just go search Chris Tutela, EliteFTS.com, and you'll see a list of my recent articles. And check out the one that I just put up about, I forget the title of the article, shame on me, but it's about getting your arms strong and jacked without beating up your joints. But the same principles that you're going to learn in that article can be applied to, training your legs, training, any other body part as well, not just your arms. So give that a read. I think that's going to be helpful for you. And now finally, guys, the important thing after training, so now you have some ideas of how you could break up your training program and have a better training split and really sharpen and really optimize your training, right? And by the way, that training program, your day of training, it should not take you 3 hours. Okay, that should be 60 minutes. Get in, you do 5 minutes of a little prehab work, you start your warm-up, and then we got about 40, 50, or 60 minutes from the moment you finish your dynamic warm-up. So don't think you have to be excessive with all the training stuff, because that's going to be counterproductive for you, because at that point, guys, if you go too far, too deep, all of a sudden now testosterone levels are going to start to plummet, and your cortisol levels, your body's natural stress hormone, are going to start to skyrocket and go up and up and up and up. That's going to put you in a catabolic state. You're going to start breaking down muscle tissue and holding on to body fat. So we got to keep you as anabolic as we can. So we want to start the recovery process right after training, and you want to always prioritize your recovery as well. So right after training, now you want to start to relax. You want to focus on some deep breathing drills. You want to then get some food, get some type of lean protein, some type of unprocessed carbohydrate post-workout. Okay, maybe you take some time to schedule a massage or cryotherapy or a float tank or sauna, right? But you have to address soft tissue, and also just give your head and just take some mental recovery as well. And when you do that, if you take a week off, let's just say every 12 weeks or so, and when I say off, you should still be doing some light, cardiovascular, maybe aerobic work, mobility circuits and stuff like that. But So you don't want to be off entirely, but you're going to be off from, clanging and banging and hitting the weights hard. Take a week off. After that week, you're going to be foaming at the mouth to get back in there, right? So not only is that going to keep you strong, keep you healthy for the long haul, but now you take a week off every few months, and now you're going to come back stronger, more excited to train. You don't lose that desire to train, because that's a real thing, right? So every once in a while, maybe it's when you go on vacation, maybe it's when you just realize, hey, I've been training hard for the last 12 weeks, I need a week off. Then that's when you work it in. But I would suggest scheduling that ahead of time, because otherwise, if you're a meathead like me, it's easy to skip that and not do it. So it could even be just a deload week. Like, even if you do want to get to the gym, if you're somebody like me who just wants to be there for other reasons, get to the gym, but just use 50% of the weight you can normally handle for an exercise and cut the volume in half. Okay, so if you're going to normally do 20 sets in your workout, you cut that down to 10. And if you're using 100-pound dumbbells, you cut that down to 50s, right? Simply put. So just deload and make sure you take that stuff seriously, because it's so important for training longevity. I don't want to not address the importance, if we're talking about being harder to kill, guys, we got to stay athletic, right? So we talked about the throws, the jumps, the sprints that we can incorporate into your training. By the way, you could also program them later in your workout if you want to. I think it was Joe Ken who said, athletes still have to be explosive in the fourth quarter, right? So you still need to be explosive in the fourth quarter of life, right? Let's just say you have a really hard workout. You come home, somebody breaks into your house, you got to be able to throw down, right? You still got to be able to be explosive. So you're training for life. So you can work that stuff in, jumps, throws, sprints. You can work that in later in the workout. I also like to work it into my off days. So if I'm training 3 days per week, now I have 2 or 3 days where I'm doing martial arts, and that kind of serves as my conditioning. And I do 7 days a week of aerobic stuff for 20 to 30 minutes. I go for a good fast-paced walk every morning for 20 to 30 minutes to get my steps in for the day. But then I get my jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai in. My knee's a little jacked up, so the last few weeks I told you about that on a previous podcast. So now I've been just hitting the just a stationary bike for 30 minutes with intervals, because that's kind of all I can do at the moment for that. But you want to do something, guys. So whether it is playing a pickup game with your friends, make sure you warm up before you do any of this shit. You got to go through that dynamic warm up. Otherwise, you're going to pull a hamstring, you're going to pull a muscle, you're going to hurt yourself, tear an Achilles. Super common in guys who are weekend warriors, so to speak. So make sure you take a good warm up and loosen up. But even if sports are not your thing, hey, can you hit the stationary bike? Could you do some jump rope? Could you do some hill sprints or some bleacher sprints? Are you more advanced? Maybe you do some agility work with some sprints. You work in some speed work on one day. You work in conditioning work on another day, right? So these things all go together. So it's important that you address it. So if you train 3 days a week, let's just say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe Tuesday is when you do your speed work. Maybe Thursday is when you do some conditioning work. Maybe Saturday is when you do some light aerobic stuff, or aerobic capacity work, right? But whatever it is, and maybe Sunday you take off completely. That's your day where you focus on recovery, get a massage, whatever, right? So there's so many different things you can do, but it can't just be strength training. You can't just go and train. That's good, of course, but if you really want to optimize, if you really want to become harder to kill, you need to be strong, you need to be explosive, you need to be conditioned. And guess what? If you're doing all these things and you're sleeping and you're managing stress and your nutrition is dialed in, you're going to fucking look the part too. So like I told you in the past, this is not an overnight process. This process takes time. And wherever you're at right now, if you're advanced or if you are somebody who's sitting on the couch and this podcast is giving you inspiration to get off your ass and get fucking moving, then hell, you have a place to start. So the more advanced you are, the longer you've been doing this, the more we could look for an optimized training program like the one I just told you about. if you are somebody who's 100 pounds overweight and just listening to this and you're eating fucking Cheetos as we speak, well, maybe it's time today you put those Cheetos down, you grab yourself an apple and you go for a walk, right? It could be as simple as that. But we have to start the process somewhere. And if you're somewhere in the middle, okay, what's your next step? You're training 3 days per week, but you're not doing any cardio? Great, let's do that. You're training 3 days per week, you're doing cardio 3 days per week. What's the next thing you could do? Look at your sleep. That's in check. Look at your stress. That's in check. Okay, how could we focus more on recovery? Could you do a day of cryotherapy or a sauna? You see, guys, everyone has an opportunity to get better. The question is, where are you and what's going to help you get better? And fellas, listen, if you need some help getting better, if you want a true professional to help you optimize your nutrition and your lifestyle so you could get to that next phase of your life, if you could truly strengthen your immune system, strengthen your body, strengthen your mind, and become harder to kill, then I want you to apply for coaching with me. If you feel that I am your guy, you could head over to leansobproject.com and fill out an application. If you are a good fit for coaching with me, I will reach out to you. We'll set up a call, and we'll create a plan for you to get you moving forward. We'll see if coaching is a good fit for the both of us, and we'll see how we can move you forward, guys. But there's 3 things that I'm going to teach you how to do in the Lean SOB Project. That's number 1, simplify your nutrition. We're going to structure it. Number 2, to help you create the nutrition and meal plan that is right for you. And number 3, finally, we're going to execute. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to coach you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to guide you so you stay accountable and execute the game plan so you could see the progress that you want. We'll melt fat off of your frame. We'll get you healthy, lean, and strong for good. Again, that's leansobproject.com. Fill out an application. Or hey, if you have any questions about it before you apply and you want to chat first, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram, guys. I always read my DMs, and it's me. It's not a fucking robot. I will be the one reaching out to you, having a conversation with you, and maybe we could set up a call from there. Either way, my Instagram is at Chris_Tutela, Tutela, at Chris_Tutela, or just head over to leansobproject.com and fill out an application. But guys, I want to thank you so much for listening. From the bottom of my heart, it means the world to me that you give a shit about what I have to say. So thank you 1,000 times. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you share it, put it up on your social media, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, whoever. Let's get the word out, and let's all become harder to kill together. I'll catch you guys next week on another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. Peace.